side issue. And when we are saying it's supply side issue, it means it is more of target driven, the electricity connections put into the place, and then the cook stoves disseminated. So it is more of a supply side issue when we're talking about energy access. And then that led to twin objectives of my study. One, to identify why central plans on energy access did not were partially successful, and then to enable a policy framework to accelerate the energy access. So methodology for the study was very simple. I reviewed the programs and policies in India on the national level, identified the best practices and policies, because I believe that every policy being made on the national level or state level will definitely have opportunity to learn. There will be a lot of best practices coming up. And then identification of gaps within those policies. Further, I went for a stakeholder consultation to validate those gaps and sought recommendations from them, and then finally developed a policy overarching framework which gave a broad and specific policy measures and possible institutional framework which could have been taken up. These are some policies and programs which were reviewed by me in India. It's been 3 decades the policies and programs for energy access has been running in India. The red ones are those which, in the red color, the programs which are closed, and the rest are still running. So and if you see very closely, all these programs have been running by different ministries in the country, and different ministries, and some are only on electricity, some are only on cooking fuels. There has been never a complete program which talks about energy access. Then there were some key takeaways from the central programs. Some programs which have been closed and some which have been working. I would just focus on 2-3 very key takeaways. One is that there were policies which actually talked about decentralized energy planning with local least cost options. For example, the integrated rural energy program. Then there were programs which talked about village energization and community participation and using of renewable local sources like biomass. There were also programs which were talking about training and capacity building of entrepreneurs, agents, and there were also some programs which were focusing on the quality control, monitoring and regulatory compliance. So they were actually very good practices which came out once these programs were studied. However, identification of gaps, I think so, is very important. Before even a policy or a regulatory gap to identify, it's very important to see the planning gaps during the planning process of the nation. It's a very fragmented approach, which is what I feel, that energy has a mandate which is very fragmented to different ministries. Ministry of Power, Ministry of Renewable Energy, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Resources. Then there is again a lack of integrated resource planning and need assessment. So because we've been talking about supply side issues, supply target driven, so we don't focus on this. And then yes, there has been national level planning, I appreciate it, but then there's not been integrated with state level plans. So that's again a very major planning gap which has come across. Then some policy and regulatory gaps. One is because there is a fragmented mandate, so there will be different programs under different ministry. For example, we have Ministry of Power, which is running a DDG program, which is decentralized distributed generation to the off-grid remote areas, and there's another remote village electrification program by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. So that's multiplicity of various programs in different ministries. Then of course, absence of models to revive health of utilities. This is one of the regulatory gaps there. And then the institutional gap, I would really like to focus on lack of coordination amongst coordination and communication between various institutions. So even if the mandate is fragmented and you have been given different areas to operate, but there is no coordination and communication which is coming up between those institutions. So with this, I try to make an energy policy framework for a national level, where I think so first we need to really identify the legal mandate. So which ministry or which ministry is going to take up this kind of mandate and then deliver it to its code. And then objectives. Energy access definition in Indian context is still very distorted. So it's very important to come up with such a clear definition which gives you a quality and quantity of how much energy, in terms of number of hours, the quality of the energy we are going to provide. Then, of course, ensuring local energy solutions to the energy access, and then regulatory support and compliance. Approach should be, yes, there should be a framework on the top for the government to look into it, and then there has to be a bottom-up energy planning at the district level, because India being a diverse nation, there are different needs at different geographical and agroclimatic zones, so that has to be done, and with market development in place. These are some specific policy measures which are very necessary in a framework. First, I've been already discussing about the need assessment and resource planning at the district level, and then mapping those needs and resources. For example, if there is a need if there is resource like biomass available, and then if you can, and there's a demand there to put up an electricity or a biomass gasifier plant. So why not do a mapping of those needs and resources, and then we can come up with a plan. And then financing incentives, I think so. We will talk about this shifting in subsidies from kerosene to probably renewable energy sources. There are a lot of actually differential pricing. A lot of things have been already taken up by the new government actually in place. So they've been working a lot to segregate the feeders, the rural feeders, agricultural and non-agricultural feeders. So that is really coming up with the new government. Then human resource development, skill development is very important. Upstream and downstream activities. When you're talking about installation and commissioning of the plants, as well as the after-sale services, that is where the major skill is lacking. And then, of course, the women empowerment and involvement in the decision process is also is the key. Then awareness building amongst various key stakeholders in the energy access. So one can be the financial institutions which are there already. We have to build capacities of those which are already present in the regional rural banks at the district level, and the project developers. So that's really important. Then of course clean energy solutions to promote the clean energy solutions at the local level. Mini grids, again, compatible with the national grids. And then standards and testing, because there are a lot of rated and non-rated products being flowing in the market, and the consumer has to decide which one is right for them, not right. So there has to be standardization and benchmarking by, we have a lot of BIS standards, so we can extend the services to this also. And then supply chain management, again, local grid and infrastructure and spares for the off-grid system is very important. If you don't have the supplies, you cannot sustainably maintain the system. So this is again going to happen. Then renewable energy service companies can come up as in the district, which can actually can push this supply chain management and can take the overall responsibility. And again, one I would like to mention is the knowledge exchange platform here. There's a lot of good practices, business models happening in different places of India. It's very important that technical advisory services can come up, and we have a knowledge exchange program, so that a person putting up a project in a different sphere can take that knowledge. Then of course, every policy should have a review, a quality monitoring and evaluation scheme. Then a possible framework which I came across was that we can have Ministry of New and Renewable Energy taking up the whole mandate, with state nodal agencies and research institutions putting up their own stake, and then we have some district agencies like banks, energy service corporations to communicate with them.
Your time is up.
And that's my last slide.
Right.
So I just want to say increasing energy access can actually give you, fulfill your two dependent goals of nation, rural development, energy security, and your sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashka. Thanks for this information. Very comprehensive review. I think this is very impressive to review 3 decades policies and programs in India and come with these good recommendations. I hope this will be implemented. And like what he also suggests, the bottom-up planning process, and also how to address the planning gaps, policy and regulation gaps, and the institutional gaps. I really think that this is not only the issue in India, but this is the issue for many developing countries to focus on the energy access issues. So I really think this kind of study could be shared, like if you have the report, later on we look forward to reading it. Thank you very much. So now I would like to invite Amila Devi, who is a project associate from World Resources Institute, India. And her presentation will focus on the bottom-up planning to promote electricity access in India. A look at the integrated resources planning for 2 Indian states. I think this is also emphasized bottom-up planning. So I really think people think the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll be talking about our work in one Indian state. This is an ongoing work, so I'm talking about our experiences for electricity planning. That's gone down to a more state level, so it actually draws a lot of parallels with what Asta was talking about. So the big energy gap, more than 200 million people in India are still unelectrified. Over 20 million people do not lack access to have access only for less than 4 hours of electricity. So the access problem is definitely there. So I'm looking at it from how planning has been typically carried out over the years in India, and what you can do differently in order to plug those gaps. So actually India has had the rural electrification program, which started way back in 1974. It was part of a minimum needs program. It was aimed at addressing electricity access gaps for the very poor. But over the years, a lot of revisions have come in with more and more effective programs coming into place. So recently, the government has announced that by 2018 there will be 100% electrification for all households. So that's drawing from that. This is in that context that we start the planning process. So for that target to be met, the government suggested that they work closely with each of the state governments to prepare a state-level power for all plan, so a 24/7 power for all plan. And so we looked at I'm going to talk about our experiences of looking a power for all plan in the state of Rajasthan in India, and what we have seen looking at those plans. So. Just to give a context of the framework where planning as energy plans are made, there is a national level where, so this is in the context of access. I'm talking purely about electricity access. So at the national level, there are rural electrification plans, which talk about giving electricity to the very poor, giving free electricity to the below poverty line households, extending grid to villages which are not electrified and so on. That's at the broader level, national level. And then at the state level is where the actual electricity plans are made, and these are made by the utilities in different states. And so utilities plan to expand their capacity every year. And at the local level, that's below the state level, that's the district or the sub-district level, the state level utilities plans are implemented at these levels. So at the national level, what typically happens is that, so Asta was pointing out that the energy access, definition of energy access is very sketchy in the context of India. So the current rural electrification plan declares that a village will be village is declared electrified if there is electricity to the public areas, there are adequate infrastructure in place, and if at least 10% of the households in the village have electricity. So that's leaving out, as per definition, there are a lot of villages that are left, households that are left out in the village, but they are still declared electrified. That's the access, the definition of access itself is in question there. And second point, at the national level plans, that the national level plans do not address, is the question of reliability of power. So when you say you are electrified, you get continuous 24/7 reliable electricity. That is not something that has been addressed yet. So at the state level, you have the utilities that plan to expand. So they make demand forecasts. Demand forecasts are typically based on the connected loads, and connected loads typically focus on only people who are connected. And so that's a current demand. And the forecasts are made based on number of applications that you get for number of applications for connections. And this leaves out people who do not apply for connections, and that includes the really poor people who cannot afford electricity in the first place. So at the local level, all of this at the national and subnational level reflect in the local level. So this is an approach that we have been thinking about. This is based on a planning framework called LEAP. It's Long Range Energy Alternatives Planning System. It was developed by the Stockholm Environmental Institute. So we went to Rajasthan, looked at this plan, then talked to the utility about an alternative approach that looks at it from the bottom up. So we told them that maybe if we look at electricity from an end-use perspective, so in demand there is an end-use perspective which is sort of which is manifested in different levels. So end-use at different levels of consumption, residential, commercial, and so on. And on the supply side, there are different supply options that are integrated, and then use maybe techniques like scenario building to sort of expand on that and project for the long term. So I'll be elaborating this a bit. So let me just the 3 steps that we have we have used here is one is to start with the demand. So a lot of the planning has been based on what a utility can supply or how much a utility is able to supply in a given year. So let's just change that around. Let's just start with the demand, and then let's plan supply to meet the demand, and then at the 3rd step, let's ensure that integration is conducted at all levels. So this is a screenshot of what we've done with it's basically a demand tree structure showing what levels we have gone into. So the first is to start, let me just tell you a story of one of our field visits in Udaipur district in Rajasthan. So there was this house again which was not electrified, and they had no hopes of getting electricity because their village was already electrified. So that's lack of access. And at the second level, their neighbors had electricity but did not have continuous electricity. So that's lack of reliable supply. And then so to compensate for this lack of 24/7 reliable supply, they were dependent on diesel generation sets, or they had to pay to somebody with electricity to recharge their mobile phones and so on. That's a problem there. And then this is not captured in a model which is top down. It can only be looked at when you look at it from an end use perspective. So the second is to so when you look at that, this is the supply side of the problem, where there is already demand and you're trying to address your supply options to meet the demand. So in that same village, there were in fact, so in Rajasthan, the state of Rajasthan has recently come up with a very progressive looking policy on providing solar irrigation pump sets to farmers who do not have power. So that's a state level target, and that's part of a national level program. So that basically addresses the energy. So it's basically addressing what we call the demand for energy services. It is not necessarily demand for electricity, but it's demand for energy services, which comes around only if you look at it from what is that energy being used for. That's only coming around when you look at it from an end use point of view. So in this framework, we are trying to integrate renewable energy options into the planning framework, and we are trying to say that the focus should be on not investment targets to expand capacity. The focus should be on meeting demand. And in the 3rd stage, so this policy that I was talking about in Rajasthan, it is a parallel policy runs at the national level. So the nodal agencies for both of these policies are different. When we try getting information on how much has been achieved so far, what are the benefits to the people, it was not readily available. And so as I was also talking about how a lot of these policies are disconnected with one another. So so there is demand, you know what the demand is, you are looking for alternate supply options, and then it should also be integrated at different levels. And this is also important point that comes across is how in typical energy plants, a lot of assumptions are used, and most of these assumptions are logged in, and you don't have and policy space is so dynamic, it changes so much. So whenever you make a plan and sort of stick to that assumption. You're forced to stick to the particular assumptions that you made. So we were looking for a tool which Leap does, is to sort of allows you to play around with that with the different assumptions. So decision making is more transparent and less locked in. So far we have been working with one of the utilities in Rajasthan to sort of build this model together. We use the same approach of demand, understanding what the demand is, who are the consumers, how much are they getting electricity, how many hours they are getting electricity for, and then try and see what are the different alternative supply options that can also be integrated. And fun fact, in energy plants, renewable energy is a separate chapter in itself. It's not typically integrated into the energy plants made by the utilities. So
your time is up.
Yes.
I think that's also your last slide. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So yeah, thanks.
I think Amila's presentation really gave an example of how this bottom-up approach, and with especially this modeling from the Leap, and how to do from the bottom-up, from the community level, to do the planning, and then go up to the state level and then the national level. It's really how you meet the demand and you prepare for the supply. I think this is a good approach, and I'm sure there are a lot of discussions should go for this one. So the last but not least, we have our colleague from Indonesia, Mr. Amro Hamkin, who is an energy expert from the government of the Republic of Indonesia. So I understand you are working for the Ministry of Energy. And he will talk about the PPP-based approach for energy access under the 35 gigawatt power program. This is quite a famous project, so we would like to hear what's going on now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you all. Good afternoon. It's not easy to talk about the energy access while I saw some of you can drink, and I cannot drink at all during the fasting month. So, but it is an advantage to be the last presenter, so that I can make this presentation efficient. Well, the presentation that I will bring right now is about how government of Indonesia face the challenge to provide the energy access to the people of Indonesia under the 35 electricity program. 35 gigawatt electricity program in Indonesia. This is a very ambitious program that launched by the government of Indonesia, the new government. So 35 gigawatt program basically is not only about generating power up to 35 gigawatt and then transmitted and distributed to the people of Indonesia, but also how this program can provide the electricity as the fairness to all Indonesian people as part of the increasing electrification ratio in Indonesia. So Indonesia facing the same problem the previous presenters, that right now we have 10 million households in Indonesia has not electricity access until today. So the goal of the government of Indonesia is to change the map from the left to the right. So right now we still have a dark side of Indonesia, especially in the eastern part of Indonesia. So we would like to make this map to be bright, so all of the people of Indonesia can get the access of the electricity by providing the electricity with the renewable energy to maximize the local resources, so that the energy that produced from that area can be sustained and they can be independent, not having the energy from the outside of that area. How to electrify the dark side of Indonesia? We have several options. The first option is the PLN grid expansion. PLN is the one and only electricity company in Indonesia, a state-owned company. So the number one is to expand the PLN grid whenever the financial is discussed. The third jump to the third is to provide the solar home system for those households that the location is scattered and distributed. The second is to create a micro-utility service based on the PPP for the multi-household settlement. From that three solutions that we're trying to achieve, we also want to educate people. We also want to have a capacity building so that the people on that area that receive the electricity service finally can operate and maintain their equipment until the end of the operation. So doing this, the first thing to do is having the rooftop tanking. So we would like to thank to ADB that currently support us to do the rooftop tanking. Why rooftop tanking? Because this is very important before we conduct the program, and this can be done by the publicly available satellite imagery such as Google Earth, Ping satellite, and so on. So by having this rooftop tanking, we can have a current and more accurate representative, because right now the data that we have is already old, so we need to update this data. Then the objective of rooftop tanking is to provide the detailed geospatial baseline for the recent household and other facility buildings, so that it can be used for the tender later on for the IPP who wants to participate in the second option, the micro-utility service. Then it will be used by the government for the implementation planning and budgeting later on. Let's talk about the implementation that currently happen in Indonesia. The status quo, the existing is government build the power plant, can be coming from the solar panel, can be coming from the micro hydro, based on the local resources that they have, then transferred directly to the local government. This is government, central government transferred to the local government. Then the local government established a corporation which has members from the residents who receive the electricity services. Then this corporation will run the equipment and then collect the payment, collect the fee from the household that receive the electricity. This is non-standard tariff because the fee is sometimes decided by the a meeting among themselves. So it's not a standard tariff from area to the other area. So some cases, most cases, I mean, the corporation has not enough fund to pay the O&M, and also especially when it needs a repair, and also the availability of replacement parts is rare because they have lack of support from the equipment supplier after the implementation. So we need to change this implementation. We need to change the current implementation. So what is our plan for the implementation of this program to electrify the 10 million households in Indonesia? This is our new approach. We want to invite the IPP, independent power producer, to perform the investment and O&M of micro-utility. This IPP then get paid by the government of Indonesia through the national budget. We have an institution under the Minister of Finance called the IIGF that will secure the monthly payment to the IPP. So you can see the illustration here. So the red is the initial investment, the expense that IPP will do, then the O&M, and they will get the availability payment and tariff revenue as part of their payment, monthly payment from the government. I told you before that we want to educate people to run the equipment, to run the O&M. So we will require the IPP to conduct a training to the local community, so that for the 3 years, so that after 3 years, the O&M can be handed over to the community until the operation period finishes. So with this new approach, we realize that there are more questions than answers. We face a lot of challenges. What are the challenges? Challenge number one, for instance, the economical scale of micro-utility. How much is the size of power plant that we offer to the IPP? 10 megawatt or more? We still don't know. The access to location, the permit simplification, the chosen technology. Should we apply the solar panel for the initial phase? The sustainability, the supervision of any government financial support to guarantee the IPP to get the money back. The tariff for the customer, we will use the national base tariff, similar or the same with the other part of the country. The quota per household, maybe 1 kilowatt hour per day or less. The autonomy duration, this will impact to the battery capacity. The longer is the more expensive. So this is the challenge. But last but not least, the closing remarks from this presentation, the government of Indonesia has established a new unit, special unit called Indonesia Terang, Break Indonesia, that will focus to this program. And we're trying right now to finalize the request for proposal and do a market sounding soon. We will invite the domestic and foreign developers with some requirements such as the localization of component, human resource development as part of the capacity building, and also the technology transfer. We will have target at least one demo pilot project will be established by the end of this year. I think that's all of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Amro. This is a very innovative kind of idea to have for PPP, especially for energy access. And personally, I also did in Indonesia for small hydro in West Java. That's also 10 years ago. It's operated, it's a PPP, but it's still continuing now. I suggest you visit there because that's really exactly the same idea. You set up the local cooperative, and then cooperative has ownership together with the private sector and with the subsidies from government. And at the same time, they decide how to use the revenue. First, they actually did for this connection for the poor families in the community. And secondly, they decide to use the revenue for improving the infrastructures like a road and water supply in the community. So after 10 years, it's still running quite well. So I will just give you more information about this. Thank you very much for all the panelists. I think we had excellent kind of information. And the presentations we just learned from different countries, but which also focus on how this national plans could be integrated with a different kind of process, with a different kind of considerations, and also how to address the gaps for the policies, for the plannings, and also for the institutional gaps, for the financing needs, investment gaps. Before I just open the floor, I just want to thank all of you for the excellent presentation again, and let us give them a round of applause for the presentation. So what I'm going to do now is I just want to open the floor and for question and answers. I'm not using this slide now. So I just want to give we have 15 minutes, so I just want to give you open the floor first. If you can just ask any of the panelists and any of the questions you want to ask, or if you want to share some of your ideas. And when you ask the question, can you just also identify yourself and then just address to whom you want to address to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentations. I'm Asna Tawfiq from the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves based in Bangladesh. It was very interesting to see that some of you included the clean cooking and aspect, because that's something that we always miss out. We are trying to do something similar in Bangladesh, where we're working with SREDA, Sustainable Renewable Energy Development Authority of the Ministry of Power, to have a coordination platform where we can have similar kind of coordination between different ministries and at different levels. But rightly mentioned that the challenge is the overall energy plan is often separated from the renewable energy and the clean energy plan. So one of the challenges, I think, is how to bring those plans together. I would like to, probably both of you can help me with this question is, for instance, in India, we see that the government is coming up with a new initiative and campaign with providing LPG to 50 million households, right? For cooking purposes. So how would such a policy or initiative kind of be inbuilt or be coordinated in the policy frameworks that you proposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. That's the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana which you are talking about. So what he's trying to, the government is trying to do is give the free connections to the BPL households, and especially in the name of women, they're trying to give. So it's just that this whole initiative is coordinated by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, whereas there is another biomass cook stoves program running by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. So it's quite important that even if, because LPG is something which is not in the mandate of renewable energy and it's in the mandate of another ministry, but the kind of what it can be done, that there can be some agencies which can form a consortium at probably a national level where they can build up a coordination cell and can see that which are the households which are being provided the improved biomass cook stoves and which they are targeting for LPG. So that coordination should not be same family receiving both the things together. So a kind of a coordination cell can be built up under the initiative. That's all.
So the framework that we were working with, the LEAP, it actually allows you, it's an energy planning tool. So it actually allows you to build cooking fuels and maybe even transportation into the framework. So if you're, the whole premise is you start with the end-use demand and go up. So for integrating cooking, it would be just in terms of adding a module on cooking and then building it up to. And maybe even see whether electricity will be used at a later point for cooking, like say microwaves and so on.
Yeah, thank you. So I think this is a good question. I probably can also bring you a little bit of information about China, where I come from. Actually, China reached 100% of rural electrification by end of 2015. But now the key issue is cooking, the clean cooking. Probably China has the largest number of rural population still use solid kind of fuels for cooking. So that caused a lot of problem for environment and health issues. And now the government look at, after 100% rural electrification, they want to see how to solve the issues for cooking. I think the Global Alliance of Clean Cooking Stoves, they also started work in China with the government. And that is also very important because the clean cooking initiative involves different ministries, how the institutional kind of coordination mechanism can set up at the national level and also local level. That's really very important. But I see the way, probably at the community level, it can come, from bottom up. The community level, they know exactly what they need. So they can talk to the government and then bring this kind of demand back to the supply side. So I think that would be.
Also in my institutional framework, if you have noticed, I've spoken about rural energy service corporations. So if such kind of corporations can be built in the districts, because finally they are going to see the supply chain management. That is a kind of idea which I've said. So they can actually maintain a database of the LPG connections and biomass cook stoves at the same hand. So that can be done.
Okay, I'll see Professor Noja, then I'll move to the background.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After so many years of work in Asia, I'm delighted to be here. And I didn't know that you were chairing this session. Anyway, glad to see you. And while congratulating the panelists for their beautiful presentations. I still feel it is very dull area. Energy access for all is a very dull area. One thing is that we all are talking about multiple sources of energy. If we take our individual life, we are the users of electricity, petroleum, LPG gas, and biomass in my case. And on top of that, if we talk about the energy access for national planning, we have to think about multiple services that we have to look into for to reach our sustainable development goals. Those are the difficulties. One, I would like to draw your attention to one specific problem, though I have so many to ask. That is, how are we going to incorporate biomass energy, access to biomass as a crucial element, which I totally agree, element when we look at the whole profile of energy access. It is crucial for Asia, South Asia in particular, where in my own country, over 70% of the food is prepared by using biomass. Now, it is completely out of energy. Who is responsible? I am working on a project funded by FAO and UNDP. That's on biomass production and another one on climate financing. Who is responsible for biomass? Either it is placed on the plates of forestry, which they do not like to accept, or agriculture, which they do not like to accept. So it has become a responsibility of poor women. Poor, I mean energy poor women. If I say poor, I am also included there, right? I use biomass for cooking. So the thing is, now we have to think very deeply. I think this is a very good forum for us to propose something, how to integrate biomass, either through bottom-up planning, if we are going to do it, how we are going to do, how we are going to involve the land management systems in our countries. I don't want to...
Do you want to address anybody to specific...
All of you can.
I think you already give a lot of answers.
No, I think one of you should, according to your experience, should try to answer that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Anantya. Okay, so I'll just follow up the chair's advice. Let's just take 2 more questions, and then we just I have first this one, the lady over there, and then I'll come to this side. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sandra, and I'm working for International Development Organization, HIVOS, in Southeast Asia. Our office in Southeast Asia is actually based in Indonesia. We have been working closely as well with the government of Indonesia for development of a remote island called the Sumba Iconic Island Program since 2011. The thing is that since this afternoon, the distinguished speakers has shared to us a lot of challenges and problems, and also some solutions that come across in energy access, both in electricity and also in non-electricity aspect. And I appreciated so much the plan of the government of Indonesia in scaling up the access of electricity in eastern part of Indonesia, because that is where the gap is. But the thing is that I sense a big hole in the discussion this afternoon regarding best practices of lesson learned that probably the ADB can share, because G1 open the session with very good examples of the pilots that you have done, for example in Nepal, in Bangladesh, and also in Pakistan, on how pay-as-you-go system works there, on how the GSM solar home system works, to have more sustainability aspect in rural off-grid areas. So if possible, there are representatives from the ADB can share what is actually the lesson learned that you got from that. That is actually, very interesting to
Sorry,
hear.
I think you asked the question this morning in the plenary, right?
No.
Oh, no?
No.
Because we are not anybody from ADB. I'm sorry, T1 also left. But I will bring these questions. I can also bring you to meet with T1 if you want to answer this. Because I don't think anybody here can, on behalf of ADB, to answer this question.
Okay.
But if you have any general question you want to ask any panelist, you can just ask.
Yeah, maybe I really would like to know, besides the planning, besides the findings of the research that the panelists already did in the past, is there any examples that you have actually done it, and then what is actually the outcome of that examples, and input that we can have as a lesson learned? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I saw there's a. Oh, okay.
It's me. Right. So
can you just
I'll be
ask
quick.
the question? Yeah, concise and go to the point.
Yes.
And also address to whoever you want to ask here.
So my name is Ridwan. I came from Indonesia. I'm a colleague of Mas Amrul Hakim. We're developing the planning now. The one that I'm so interested is that to all the speakers, except Mas Amrul, of course, because we're the same organization basically. But anyway, the LEAP and TEA approach, because now from Amrul presentation, you know that the Indonesian planning is not bottom-up, but more of like up, top-down. And what we're looking for is how can we somehow use this LEAP and TEA approach into the planning that we're developing right now. What my question will be, what kind of data that is needed specifically so that we can somehow use that to, or incorporate that to Indonesian national planning, and extending the discussion also not only biomass, because we're also, the Indonesian government now have an effort to distribute a cheap melon gas, we call it. This is basically a gas with 1 kilogram, which is very small and easy to distribute one, and that's part of the program in the Ministry of Energy too. Is that somehow can be integrated into the plan, or how can we somehow integrate those energy into the national plan? That would be the second question. And the last question will be, is it okay if we have a technology separated plan? Because a lesson learned from China, now we have, our plan is being tried now is only electricity. And now if after the Chinese government have 100%, their problems appears, the coal stove. Now we do not, that is a strong lesson learned, we do not want to repeat that. Now is it okay for us to have at least electricity planning first, and then have the gas or biomass or any technology, or it has to be at the same time, or it has to be a separate plan but in a different technology? So all the researchers and experience may have the question.
Thank you very much. I think this is 3 questions. We add up 2 more, and we have 5 questions. I just want to ask all panelists, I think from the biomass, and also from the tea, what is the Israel? You talked about the approach.
I would like to respond on the practical example of how we are moving forward with the process, and how is the lesson learned. So right now what we have been doing is we have already started communicating and collaborating with Sustainable Renewable Energy Development Authority of Bangladesh, and we basically this presentation has been co-delivered with Shredder, and we have the Honorable Chair and his colleague here also. So what we are trying to do is we are sharing these lessons with Shredder, and I think we have already planned a visit to these off-grid areas with them, and from that they will actually take what are the needs and priorities, and then we will coordinate and collaborate in making the plan further. So that is how far we have proceeded.
Thank you, Israel. I think Amila, you can just provide some comments about your question on data, since she talked about this leap. I think the data is really a gap we have to find a way to address this.
So typically bottom-up plans are very data intensive. So, but the advantage of using Leap is that you can go into as disaggregated levels as your data allows you for. For instance, when we were trying to model, we divided it into different sectors, residential, commercial, and so on. So within the residential sector, we happen to have data that was collected by a government organization on what are the appliances used at different districts and what income category uses it and so on. So we were able to have a clear idea about at an income category what kind of appliances are used, and then what is the energy intensity of appliances and so on. So it basically starts at the level that you want it to start. But at the end of the day, if you are going to have a broad model, then you just need to know what is the energy intensity of each sector, or what is the energy intensity of the level that you're looking at. That's the basic data that you're looking for.
Thank you.
There were a couple of questions on how to integrate different technologies into this kind of a model. So you can still have one model for a particular geographical area and have different technologies integrated into it. It's just a matter of putting in the technological specifications. So there is a demand side and a supply side. On the supply side, you can have different technological specifications.
Thank you, Amina. I think Astra, do you have some comments for the biomass questions which you asked about?
Yes, so ma'am, your question was who's responsible for the biomass. So as far as I know, for India, we have this Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which is looking for the biomass energy sector also. So of course, the bottom-up planning is important when we are talking about when I was talking about resource and demand assessment and mapping it. So even if a place which is producing a lot of biomass, it is important for the ministry who's taking care of the renewable energy sector to actually see if that resource is available there, and if there is energy not reach or there's not supply of access. So how they can come up with a energy plan with biomass as the priority. So you need to actually prioritize depending on the resource available, and if that is done, of course there will be some coordination from the agricultural ministry and forestry department, which is of course required. But then the energy department who's looking for energy access in those areas should prioritize the resource available at first hand, and not rather go for a solar or a wind project. Thank you.
Thank you, Asta. I think we still have a lot of hands. Let me just pick up one from this side and one from this side. And let's conclude in 5 minutes.
Yes, hello. My name is Chila Morphis, and I represent ENGIE, with a large utility, a multinational utility, and very much looking into going into this microgrid space and into rural electrification. So we very much welcome the Indonesian government's switch in this direction, not to try to take it all upon themselves and having some private investment in this, because we're very, very interested, for not just for Indonesia, for the whole region. I mean, we're talking about an archipelago region where there's lots of islands that need electrification. In terms of the model that you presented, do I understand correctly that you're saying that the PPA sort of is only going to be lasting 3 years? Because I'm not sure that's very investor friendly or very, okay. So that was my question.
The PPA is longer than 3 years, but right now we're still trying to figure out how long is the PPA should be in place and then transfer to the local community. But the 3 years is only for the transfer of technology for the local community, so that the local community later on, after the 3 years of the establishment of this power plant, they can do the O&M. But the availability payment and tariff revenue as part of the security of payment from the IPP will be continue on until the operation date. Yeah, thank you.
No, I think that will happen from year one, because no utility has people to send to I don't know how many different islands. So the idea from any utility's perspective who wants to scale up in this, which I guess most do, is that you hire people locally, you train them, and from day one they're doing the O&M. You're just doing the aggregation of that and the organization of that as a utility to always transfer the best practice, to always have the best processes, to manage that as a utility, which is very multi-sited versus few-sited. So I don't think you need to put very strict regulations on the 3 years, because from year one, from day one, there will be local people doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. So can we have a, yeah.
That's Guillermo Bas from National Electrification Administration Philippines. I'm just wondering, nobody is asking about cook stoves, but what about biomass? Then what about considering the planting of backyard for those cook stoves, particularly in the parkland areas, so that the availability of fuel wood, they could gather that from their backyard. That's the best thing that we could do. If we could help provide the community with the particularly efficient cook stove, perhaps the fuel wood coming from their backyards could make it sustainable, and that will make it the environment beautiful. I view it as a very practical way of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I saw you have the hand for a long time. Sorry about this. Last question, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Angeline Heine. I'm from the Republic of the Marshall Islands. I serve my government as the National Energy Planner. My question is to you, Ms. Gupta. Thank you for your presentation. I felt like you are echoing the same issues I'm going through. We have our energy sector is also very fragmented, and we have a national energy policy. And one of our targets is improving access to modern form of cooking to the rural communities. But my question is, as we both understand, sometimes energy issues to a particular countries are different from one another. And what sort of enabling frameworks did your country came up with in trying to bring everybody together or clarifying roles of particular agencies and ministries? Thank you.
So as such, we do not have such an enabling environment, such an enabling policy framework in place. But I can just share a small initiative. It's not an initiative also, it is just a designation of initially, so we have, with this new government in place, we had different ministers for different three sectors. Ministry of Coal, Power and Renewable Energy had different ministers in place. What the new government has done, they have integrated these three ministries with a single minister in place. So I think that is one thing which has come up, but I'm sure there'll be, they are also talking about a mini grid energy access framework. So I don't know, it's not in place yet, but they have been, talking about it. With that, some state level initiatives has also come up, microgrid policy by a state of Uttar Pradesh. So they are also coming. So ultimately it is important to integrate, even if at state level you are coming up with a holistic framework, it is important to integrate those frameworks with the national frameworks and not just in isolation develop. Or probably if even a state is developing one framework, then we can learn from those framework and develop a national framework. That is what has been done. Thank you.
Yeah, I think different country probably has a different approach because the system, institutional system also different. So I really think we had excellent kind of panel discussion, and also we have an excellent audience to ask good questions. The only thing is, my chair is not good enough to accommodate all the questions. I would like to thank you very much for all the panelists. Thank you very much for all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. And thank you, Han Peng, for being an excellent chair and for being a great audience. I think there were still a lot of hands going up, so please continue the discussion in the networking session. And come again tomorrow at 11 o'clock where we'll have the next session in the energy access track on innovative business models. Thank you.